Close the course. You don't need another one. Somewhere a man is selling you a 9-step system for a 2-step job. He gets rich either way. His money arrives the moment you buy, long before any result reaches you. The truth is free. Free things don't sell, so nobody bothers repeating them. Getting rich is brutally simple. It's also lonely, boring, and it demands you stand alone while every man you know does the opposite. That's why the crowd walks past it every single day. There's a short list of rules. It fits on a napkin. Everyone has heard it. Almost no one lives it. That gap between hearing and obeying is where the rich live, and where you keep getting stuck. Watch this to the end, and you lose the right to pretend you didn't know. Everyone already knows the rules. Obeying them is what makes you dangerous. Start with the money, because the money is where they hid the lie. You were sold a story that says wealth is complicated. That story is expensive on purpose. A complicated problem needs a product you can buy again and again. A simple decision sells exactly once, and nobody in that industry can eat on a single sale. So the machine works around the clock to keep the simple thing looking hard. Picture the man it was built for. 9 browser tabs, a dropshipping course, 40% done. An options webinar at 8, a PDF called 12 Passive Income Streams, a store with no product in it, a Notion board, color-coded, beautiful, empty. 3 years of this. The bank balance sits exactly where it started. He owned 9 plans and 0 assets. I've watched men recite the correct answer for a decade and stay broke the entire time. Knowing a rule and obeying a rule belong to 2 different religions. One keeps you comfortable. One leaves you alone in a room. Only one of them pays. Now look at the machine holding him there. It has a name you were trained to say with pride. The salary. A salary is the price they pay to keep you from ever owning the thing you build. You arrive, you create value, and every 2 weeks they hand back the smallest slice that keeps you loyal enough to return on Monday. The part that compounds into real wealth stays with the owner. That was always the arrangement. 40 years of it, and at the end they hand you a word you were taught to wait for your whole life. Retirement. A man waiting on year 40 causes no trouble in year 3. The waiting is the product. That is the rat race. A plain description of a track that moves under your feet while a salesman offers you better shoes. And the cage has a second door, one nobody warns you about. Every raise you win, your life expands to swallow it. Bigger apartment, newer car, better restaurants. The income climbs and the freedom stays exactly where it was, because the appetite climbs faster. They call that success. It's a leash that gets longer every year while the collar stays on. Name the tab you keep open and never finish. One word. Say it in your head right now. Here is the sentence the machine will never hand you. Wealth is the day your money works a longer shift than you do. Sit with that one. The day something you own earns while you sleep, while you eat, while you sit at your kid's game and think about nothing. That single day is the border between the 2 kinds of men, and every rule you're about to hear pushes toward it. Every one of those rules is free. That is exactly why they stay buried. Free things get skipped, so nobody profits by repeating them to you. Economists at the Federal Reserve measured what the typical American family is actually worth. Their 2022 survey put the median family near $190,000. Most of that sits locked inside a house they can't spend, and an account they can't touch without a penalty. Strip out the home, and the number falls through the floor. The bottom half of the country owns almost nothing that earns for them. The rules sat in plain sight the whole time. The country walked past them anyway, generation after generation, and called the walking a career. The owner and the earner watch the same clock. One owns what the clock produces. The other rents his own hours back to himself and calls it a living. You already know which one you've been. 7 rules, short enough to write on your palm, rare enough that living them puts you in an almost empty room. Rule 1. Own a cut. Stop renting your hours. Gulbenkian never drilled a well in his life. When the great powers carved up the oil of the Middle East, he sat in the room and asked for one thing: 5% of everything, forever. They called him Mr. 5%. That sliver of every barrel made him one of the richest men who ever lived, while other men did the digging, the sweating, and the dying. He understood a thing that men with far better jobs never grasped. A wage ends the day you stop. A percentage keeps arriving while you sleep, while you travel, while you're sick, while you're dead, and your children collect it. You don't need an oil field. Own a newsletter, and every issue you send belongs to you. Own a piece of software, and it sells at 3 in the morning without asking your permission. Own a royalty on something you made once. Own the relationship with an audience, so no platform can rent it out from under you and change the terms in the night. The crowd chases the largest hourly rate it can find. The owner hunts the smallest permanent piece of the largest possible flow, and he waits. Getting a cut of something is worthless, though, if the thing itself is chained to your hands. Which brings the next rule, and it decides everything that follows. Rule 2. Pick the things that copy for free. Some assets demand a fresh hour of your life for every single sale. Others get made once and copy themselves 1,000,000 times over at 0 cost. Choose the second kind, and the math of your life changes forever. Rupert Murdoch understood this in ink and later in satellites. He bought the presses and then the transmitters. He owned the machinery that takes one story and drops it into millions of homes at once. He owned the copying itself. A single edition paid him 1,000,000 times over, while the journalists who wrote it collected a wage. A barber earns once per chair per hour for as long as his back holds out. A course, a video, a song, a line of code gets built once and sells forever at the speed of a click. A rich man builds things that clone themselves in the dark while he does nothing at all. Ask this of everything you touch. Does it copy for free, or does it want my hands again tomorrow morning? Answer honestly, and half your projects die on the spot. Let them die. They were jobs wearing a costume. Here is where most men trip. They hear this and go looking for something to sell, some product, some clever offer, and they spend 6 months building it before a single human being has asked for it. That's backwards. Find the thing people already pay for badly, in cash today. Then build the version that copies itself. The market tells you what it wants long before you're smart enough to guess it. The man who understands this stops asking how many hours he can work and starts asking how many people he can reach with a single hour. Those are 2 different lives, and they diverge quickly. Copies are useless, though, if you have no dry cash to build them or buy them. And the next rule is the one almost nobody has the stomach for, because it demands you sit still while everyone around you spends. Rule 3. Keep the cash the crowd spends. Wealth changes hands in the bad years. It moves from the people who ran out of money to the people who kept it, and the transfer happens fast. Here is a man who kept it. Aristotle Onassis landed in Buenos Aires as a refugee, driven out of his own city, with a few dollars in his pocket and no name worth speaking. He took a night job on a telephone switchboard. While the rich men of the city made their private calls through his lines, he sat in the dark and listened. He learned how money speaks when it thinks nobody is in the room. Who buys? Who blinks? Who is desperate and hiding it? He saved everything he earned. He lived like a poor man on purpose. Then the Depression arrived, and the world lost its nerve. Ship owners were scrapping vessels for pennies, certain that global trade was finished forever. Grown men wept and sold. Onassis had cash, and Onassis bought. Freighters near worthless, going for the price of scrap metal. Hetty Green had played the same hand a generation earlier. She hoarded money and dressed like a beggar while she did it. When the panic of 1907 brought the banks and the city of New York to their knees, she had the cash and she set the terms. She lent to a city on its back, and she named her price. In a crisis, cash gives the orders and everybody else takes them. You keep dry powder for one reason: to be the only buyer standing in a room full of forced sellers. A downturn is a sale, and only cash gets to shop. Discipline in the good years buys command in the bad ones. But cash leaks out of most men's hands long before any crisis arrives, and the leak is silent. Rule 4. Kill the things quietly bleeding you. Before you chase another dollar of income, stop the bleeding. A man who cannot hold money will never build any, no matter how much of it passes through his hands. John D. Rockefeller kept a small ledger from his very first job as a clerk. He wrote down every cent. He hunted every waste. He obsessed over shaving a fraction of a penny off the cost of refining a single barrel. And then he applied that fraction across millions of barrels. That fanatical war on the leak built the largest fortune of the age. Men laughed at the ledger. The ledger buried them. The modern leak wears a face you already recognize. The subscription you forgot about. The payment on the car that makes strangers think you're winning. The lifestyle that quietly swells to swallow every raise the week it lands. Each one is a small hole in the hull, and the hull is your freedom. Cancel the drains. The monthly payment is the enemy. Comfort is a tax you pay to feel wealthy while remaining poor, and you pay it every month on the first. There's a harder version of this, and it has nothing to do with money. Time leaks the same way. The hours you hand to a screen. The evenings you burn arguing with strangers who will never know your name. The weekend you spend recovering from a week you hated. Rockefeller hunted pennies because pennies were the unit of his game. Your unit is hours, and you are bleeding them at a rate that would frighten you if you wrote it in a ledger. So write it. For 1 week, write down where the hours went, the way he wrote down where the cents went. Most men refuse to run this experiment because the ledger tells the truth, and the truth is expensive. Name the leak you already know about. 1 word. Plug the holes, and something strange happens. Money starts to pile up. And that pile is where most men make their final, fatal mistake. Rule 5. Feed the winnings back. Never touch the seed. Money you keep is an army. Spend it, and you disband the soldiers one by one. Send it back into the field, and it fights for your freedom while you sleep. John Jacob Astor made his first fortune in furs, then did what almost nobody does. He poured the profit into Manhattan dirt and held it. He slept while the city grew around his land, and every night his holdings were worth more without him lifting a finger. He fed the winnings back again and again, and the island did the rest. Charlie Munger built an entire life on the same brutal patience. Own something that prints cash, then sit still for decades and let it compound, while faster men churn themselves into the ground. Onassis lived it too. When trade came back, and it always comes back, his fleet came alive. He took the profit and bought more ships. He held the whole thing together and grew it, year after year, while the men who had sold in the panic went back to work for wages. Your winnings have exactly one job: buy the next asset. The car can wait. The seed is sacred, and every man who spends it goes back to the beginning. Rule 6. Get rich where no one is looking. The target always lands on the visible man. So vanish. Meyer Lansky ran one of the most powerful money operations of his era, with no title, no throne, and his name on no door anywhere in the world. They called him the accountant. The loud men collected the headlines and the prison cells. The quiet man kept the money and kept his freedom, and he died in his own bed. Machiavelli saw this 5 centuries earlier. The crown on the visible king is decoration. Real power is the hand behind the throne, unseen, unblamed, and untouchable. The man everyone can see gets taxed, envied, robbed, and watched. The man nobody notices compounds in peace. Spending money to look rich is a fee you pay to become a target. Keep your numbers to yourself. Let the flashy men absorb the attention, the resentment, and the scrutiny, while you quietly absorb the assets. Silence buys you 3 things men pay fortunes for. It buys you room to make mistakes without an audience. It buys you time before competitors notice what you're building. And it buys you peace from every relative, friend, and stranger who discovers a need the moment they learn what you have. Announce a plan, and you spend the energy that should have built it. Announce a fortune, and you invite the whole world to help you spend it. The quiet builder keeps both. 6 rules. Every one of them free. Every one of them known to the man in the parking lot his entire adult life. He obeyed none of them, and the reason is the last rule, and it's the one that breaks men. Rule 7. Do the boring thing while the crowd refuses. Every rule you just heard was available to you before you clicked this video. None of them required permission, capital, genius, or luck. You walked past all of them for one reason, and it costs more than money. Obeying them means standing alone. It means driving the older car while your friend leases the new one and posts it. It means reinvesting the profit while your co-workers spend theirs on a holiday they'll photograph. It means a quiet balance and a plain jacket while everyone around you performs a wealth they don't have. Onassis obeyed it in a dark room at 3 in the morning, while grown men panicked around him. Rockefeller obeyed it with a ledger men mocked. Lansky obeyed it by making himself invisible, while louder men chased the spotlight into a cell. The rules stay empty, because living them costs you the crowd, and the crowd is the one price most men will never pay. Look at the list again. Every rule on it was written down long before you were born. Every one of them has been printed, repeated, and ignored 1,000 times over. The men who obeyed them died rich and quiet. The men who debated them died on schedule, on a salary, on time. That is the whole game. It always was. Now turn the camera around. You've heard all 7. Everyone landed as familiar. You knew about ownership. You knew a downturn was a sale. You knew the payment was a leash. You knew. So answer one question and answer it cold. What carries your name on the deed this year? What did you acquire that earns while you sleep tonight? Here is the man in your mirror. He got the raise. 8,000 a year. For 1 month, he felt rich, and he told people about it. Then the new number blessed the leased car, the bigger apartment, the upgrade he had earned. 90 days later, the raise had vanished into a monthly payment, and he was selling the same hours he sold before, inside a nicer cage with a better lock on it. He upgraded the cage and kept the sentence. That man is you on the days you choose comfort, and you have chosen it more than once this year. You skipped Rule 7 with full understanding of what you were doing. You skipped it because obeying it means driving the older car while your friend posts the new one, and some part of you would rather look like a winner than quietly become one. There it is. The man selling you courses is only a symptom. He sells to a hunger that already lives inside you. The hunger for the clever move over the boring one. The sophisticated system over the simple obedience. The appearance of wealth over the silent fact of it. He gets rich on that hunger. You feed it every time you open a new tab instead of executing the rule you already understand. Be honest about what the tabs really are. They're permission slips. Every course you buy lets you tell yourself you're working on it, and every hour spent studying is an hour you did something that felt like progress and cost you nothing. Consumption feels identical to effort from the inside. That's the trap, and it's the most comfortable trap ever built, because it never once asks you to stand alone. 3 years of feeling productive. 0 assets. You already did the math at the top of this video, and you recognized the man. And the real bleed runs slower and quieter than any bad job ever did. 40 years of knowing exactly what to do and choosing comfort every ordinary day, until you retire rich in advice and poor in everything the advice was for. So here is the fork, and nobody can stand at it for you. You are one of 2 men. The first feels all of this, nods, closes the tab, and stays precisely who he was this morning. He will tell himself he'll start next month. He said that last year. The second picks the single rule that stung the most tonight, and starts obeying it while it's still boring and still free. Everyone already knows the rules. Obeying them is what makes you dangerous. If one rule hit a nerve you've been avoiding, put its number below and one word. Obeying. Say it out loud, and it gets harder to lie to yourself tomorrow morning. Most men who reach this point will do nothing at all. That is the filter, and it's a cold one. The rules stay empty because living them costs you the crowd, and most men will always choose the crowd over the fortune. Everything you just heard was about dead men. Gulbenkian in a room a century ago. Hetty in a panic you will never see. Rockefeller's ledger closed and buried with him. History. Them then gone. The part that matters for you lives 1 layer past this video, behind the throne, where the principle stops being a story about the dead and turns on the living. On you. This week. From exactly where you stand right now, with the little you actually control. It's in the first line of the description. Most men reading this will scroll past it, and that scroll will quietly sort them back into the crowd they came from. This is what the grey eminence has always meant. Mechanics, learned in silence, by the kind of man who obeys a rule the moment he understands it, while everyone else is still arguing about it in the comments. Everyone already knows the rules. Obeying them is what makes you dangerous.